Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ear to the East. Why aren't you
You're
doing
not
it,
me.
Howard?
So I thought we did that at the end.
No, we're gonna do it at the beginning and the end. That's our trademark, man.
Sorry, well, it's also different with you presenting now, please.
Yes, so I want to talk to you about something, a little bit of a subject matter. And this came around actually quite recently. And I want to talk to you and I want to ask you the question, but I don't want you to answer just yet. I'm going to explain it. Does a singer make or break a band, like for people or for you specifically? And the reason why I asked this is because I was talking to a friend and she's really into metal, as am I. And I was like, oh, if you really like metal, you'll really like this band called LOVEBITES. And I was like, let's do some LOVEBITES. I was like, Miyako is amazing, Midori is amazing. The band's just absolutely insane. And she pretty much turned around to me and goes, I'm aware of LOVEBITES. I know who they are. And she turned around and said, I can't stand the singer.
Okay. That's her words.
She was like,
that's her reality.
That's her words. She was like, don't like the singer. She goes, I've tried and tried to kind of get into them, but just the singer does nothing for me. And
I know this really good hearing aid company that you can recommend her to if you want.
Yeah.
All right.
But it got me thinking, like, does that ever affect anyway? And also comments as well. I'd love to hear what people's opinions are of this one. But is it like bands?
I get the feeling we're probably gonna be shifting up a few comments just from the examples I imagine this subject's gonna bring. All right. Well, look, as usual, when we do these, I usually sort of like drop my source material first of all, just to explain where I'm working from on this one, because I think the first thing I should probably get out of the way, if that's the subject, is that obviously first things first, I did do a video, a rather contentious video, where I talked about why most of the music I listen to, especially rock, I prefer female singers. And it's not just for the aesthetic reasons. There are musical reasons that I explain why I just prefer female singers. So I should get that out of the way first of all. Now, what's a good voice could be? Well, I mean, obviously, when you're looking like ASAMI from LOVEBITES, you're looking at a powerful, classical sounding voice. You know, there's something I've always said, there's something borderline operatic about a performance. But then you put that alongside other of my favorite singers like YUKO SUZUHANA from Wagaki Band, who is probably my favorite singer. You know, very different style of singing, but again, full voice. Solo singer Ayaka, probably my favorite of the normal contemporary singers. You know, these are people who I love, who've got big, round, full voices. But then I also got a lot of space for the thinner voices. I mean, I said, yeah, they're nimble, they're interesting, they can do sort of very sharp and bouncy, dynamic things.
I want to get to the nitty gritty. Who don't you like?
Well, yeah, no, actually, that's fair enough. I will drop some examples. I will drop some examples if you're willing to. I will. Look, so my point is, and I think we're gonna stay away from subjects like sort of like the rough, like the shouted vocals from metal. I assume we're sticking away from that today because I know that's a contentious issue of a different subject, and you open up a whole, yeah. So those are the kind of voice I like. I mean, a whole range. I think I don't know if it's necessarily voices that bother me. It's singing styles that bother me.
Yeah.
So now this is mainly a male-led thing, but I've heard female singers do this as well, which is I really dislike this sort of overly weathered style of singing that some singers do. Now, I'm okay for you adding a little bit of breaks to the voice. I mean, Ina at the end in Bish, she has some vocals where she pushes the voice and pushes it to a little bit of a crack, and that's a bit deliberate, a bit style in places, but I think it adds a real feeling of emotion. She has recently done a couple of songs where she might have overdone it, but you know, the point is that that's a style where I really like it. Yeah. But there are some singers where they just sound like everything's so world weary. Oh, the world is so difficult, and they sing in this kind of quiet, labored voice, and everything's kind of very breathy. And I'm just like, dude, just fucking sing. Now, I don't really think this is a fair example of that, but maybe a slightly different thing is I know a lot of people are really into Regal Lily, and I like what Regal Lily are on paper, but I really don't like anything about their sound. And this actually, I did another video about this about 3 years ago, where I actually said with Regal Lily, it's like, I would recommend Regal Lily. I actually would to a lot of people. But
Yeah.
personally, I just can't listen to them because it's something about like it was also the way the guitars play, but the vocal sound. I just find it really weirdly belabored. It doesn't sound like she's singing to me. It sounds like something's bothering her, and it's coming across in the recording. And it's not like an emotional thing. It's like, yeah. So that for me, I think it's more. It's not voice. I don't think I've ever heard a voice that I just hated. But there's singing styles that really piss me off.
Yeah. Is that like so? Is that you just said then? They're not for you.
I said a lot of shit.
You said a lot of shit. Yeah. Just, if we weren't cancelled beforehand, we're going to be cancelled now for sure.
That's all right. The Regal Lily fans cannot be stopped. They will come and murder me in my sleep. So this is the last. We might as well get it all out right now. This is the last recording we're ever going to get.
Well, you just said then you would recommend them a lot, but you just can't personally see them. Now, here's the question: if they had a different singer, would you listen to them more? Do you reckon?
Well, I mean, honestly, like I say, my problem with Regal Lily is into several things about the way they write their songs and stuff, and it's kind of a weird thing in that I both understand that what a lot of people with similar tastes to me would like them, but so if I was to think about a band where I just don't like the singer, I suppose, yeah, that's a difficult question. I suppose sometimes there are bands where I'd be like, I would like this if I wasn't the singer, if it wasn't the singer. All right. Can I really piss people off? Is it okay if I really piss people off? Yeah. Do you know, I'm just saying that because the last time
I'm surprised people aren't already.
All right. The last time I talked about this band was a few years ago, and boy, this singer. People are properly in love with this singer. So you mentioned this, shit is on. I'm gonna say it. I liked their first couple of CDs, but of recent years, I can't stand Tucker from 1OK's singing style. He's gone from this thing where he used to just sound passionate to now it just sounds really try-hardy. And I was talking about this the other day, actually. So I've kind of sounds like I'm really ragging on 1OK Rock. It's just what they're doing, what they used to do, I liked, and what they're doing now, it doesn't work for me. And I feel like he's try-harding. And the truth is that if you took 1OK Rock songs and you switched him out, I think I would enjoy them more these days.
You know what? I hate you so much because every time I let you speak, I have to think of new examples in my head off the fucking fly.
So you were going to diss him as well, is what
I was going to diss him as well. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So we're both fucked. Okay.
But no, I have exactly the same problem. Like I 1OK Rock for me is one of those bands. It's like you know
when we're picking on the guys. We're sexist. We're picking on guys again.
I know. It is one of those bands where I love the sound of it, but I don't know what it is, but I just can't quite get into them.
I do think again. I think it's a singing style thing because he's got a good voice.
Yeah,
I like his voice.
He has got a good voice. But it just, I don't know. Sometimes for me, it comes across as like way too monotone. Like it's singing.
Really?
Yeah, okay. It's singing, but there's like, I don't know. It's like he's found a formula, and God forbid if it ever like deviates from that slightly. And for me,
could you argue, to play devil's advocate, could you not argue that most singers are basically just trying to find a formula that works for them?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I suppose. Yeah, you're right. You could make that argument. And
I'm going to go really left field here and say, like, one of the examples that you often hear with more old school people is like Leonard Cohen. Like, that's a voice that some people really love, Leonard Cohen, and other people are like, dude, learn to sing. And then, what's the other? I always forget the popular one, the one who was always he's the one who did the video with the cards where the lyrics get taken away. And
I don't know. I've seen about 1,000 of those videos over the years, and you're gonna have to narrow that down.
He's like one of the most famous singers ever, and I can't remember his name, but a lot of people like love him, and a lot of people hate him as well. There's going to be like most people in chat are probably going to know who that is, and probably going to like.
All right,
sure, they begin to a B. But anyway, so I think it's natural for singers to have style. And I think the problem is as you said before, and so to kind of like play your point slightly, this is where the subjectivity is really strong. And I do agree. I think singing is, because it's the bit where you focus your attention. mostly in most songs. It has to carry many things. It has to carry emotion, which in itself, emotion is somewhat of an amusical thing. It's expressing things over and on top of the music. And sometimes, you know, like you get this in all style of music as well. Sometimes the way you display emotion is by falling out of rhythm. You're going behind rhythm or ahead in a sort of almost like a classical musician way. So it could be argued that the same thing could be achieved via tone. You know, you could drop slightly, you know, you could ramp up to a note instead of just hitting the note straight on, or maybe going a little bit sharp to give a little bit. So you could argue that you can do many amusical things. And anytime you do something which is against basic music theory, you're stepping into a territory where liking it is more subjective than if you just, you know, I mean, the most objective thing is probably a fucking MIDI track, and yet that's probably the most boring thing. So, yeah, I guess there is an argument to be said for the fact that it's always going to be subjective, but I think it is also fair to say that in the same way that you can have things that are so unmusical that they are very niche, you could have a singer who is so far off the reservation, you know, being so expressive in a way that is unconventional, that they could have that effect. This is why the Asami from LOVEBITES thing really surprises me, because I can understand people saying that it's just not my thing. I get that. But to like actually be like, oh, I can't listen to them because of her, I'm like, it might not be your thing, but she's so like, I mean, she's like pinpoint musically, she's got a very tonal voice.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm gonna play even more devil's advocate here. I'm gonna notch it up, because I'm sure I don't know. I've never asked, but I'm pretty sure you've probably seen this, and I know I have. But I've had a fair few people with Band-Maid exactly the same, say the exact same thing about SAIKI. Have you come across that? Yeah, I know the stern look already. I did say I was ramping up the pressure. Howard's like, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. Like, yeah, no, you must have seen those comments. Like, yeah.
Okay, I mean, so the SAIKI thing, if we're being entirely honest, I can understand why her voice might be seen as a little bit on the subjective side, and I would probably argue that a little bit of why her voice could be disliked by some people might even, and I'm really going to be fair here and say that I can see that some people may dislike her voice in the same way that I dislike Taka from 1OK's voice, because a lot of her voice is this sort of, it's power and push, but it feels kind of push. You know, it's, her singing style is not quite as effortless as some other singers. You know, so you feel like she's really sort of pushing her voice a lot, and this may in some way relate to the singing issues she had earlier in her career, which obviously she doesn't have anymore as far as I'm aware. But you know, I mean, it might be part of that. She might deliberately in her style sing a little bit too aggressively against, you know, I'd love to get a vocal coach to really sort of like go through this in perhaps a more tangible way, but I think she might be singing up against the edge of her ability a little bit more than most singers do, and that could come across in the way that I find Taka from 1OK Rock, I find him sounding a bit try-hardy, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some people who hear SAIKI in that way. I personally don't. I just feel like she's someone who's given 110%, but again, you know, I can hear how some people might dislike her voice. That's an interesting one. This is one of the reasons why I've always said I'd really love to hear SAIKI from Band-Maid like singing on a jazz album, where she can just use the power but without the push. I'd love to hear how her voice sounds with just that power, just sort of like brooding rather than blasting. Because I get the feeling that she would have a very comfortable, powerful voice in that setting. Yeah. So I think we'd see another side of it. But we have seen, in a way, I get that Memorable was sung by Miku. That was actually no, it wasn't sung by Miku. But you know, I get the idea that it was kind of like more of a acoustically sort of Miku type song. And that I get. So as a result, her voice was a little bit lower, but it wasn't kind of like that jazz thing where you go really for the deep swells quite as much. So it's a bit of a Miku style song is what I meant to say. So yeah, I would like to hear her doing something a bit jazzy where you have like a big band arrangement, but not so much the need to push. Because I think she could pull that off. And I suspect that might be why a lot of people don't, well, not a lot of people, but why there are certainly quarters of people who don't like her is because of the fact that she's always singing in that really sort of blasting way. Are there any female singers who just haven't worked for you? Maybe on the other end, maybe something.
It's hard to say that off the top of my head. To be quite honest with you, if I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to piss a lot of people off here.
Fuck, the tone of this video is nice and clear.
Yeah, you can tell this one's like, you know, butchering our subscribers. But a lot of people really, really like the tone of Ayami's voice, and I could Ayami Muto. And I could, and I could never get into that, and that's for various reasons. I wouldn't say that's a distinct crap all over her voice, because it's not. She's got a very, very good voice. It's like you said, it's not my style, and the genre of music that she does also not my cup of tea.
Okay, let's go in a slightly different direction then, because at the moment we've been playing towards the singers who are arguably too subjective. Now, one of the people on my channel, he's really, really good, one of my followers. He's like always really, really passionately into stuff. But he had on my Twitch streams, he had me listening to a lot of Irie Suzuki recently. Now, I don't know if you know Irie Suzuki, it's not particularly relevant for the thing, but I kind of listened to her voice and I said, she has the most like professional pinpoint session musician voice I've ever heard. But the one thing that really stuck to me is that I didn't feel like there was anything particularly identifiable about her voice. Like if I heard her voice, every time I'd be like, that's an amazing performance. But I don't know if I would recognize her voice from a lineup of singers, because there was not anything particularly distinct. She was just very good. Kind of like the perfect girl band singer, which ironically she was from a girl band originally, from what I'm aware. Have you ever had a singer like that, where it's been the opposite, where you've kind of wanted them to more, being like, oh, go on, ham it up a bit more. You know, maybe they're a little bit too safe.
Yes, I can't remember her name. I'm sure somebody's going to freaking let me know in the comments. But there is a singer from the band that split up. I can never say it. Necronomadol.
Oh, Necronomadol. Yeah.
There we go. That's a mouthful.
It's not exactly rolling off your tongue anytime.
No, it's not. I struggle enough as it is with Japanese names. Jesus. But yeah, it's I can't remember her name. She's got the kind of like gothy looking one with the really straight fringe. All of them, with the really straight fringe. She did a few music. The name will come to me, but it's not clicking right now. But she did a few music videos where like she's like singing in a forest, and the music.
They have a thing about forests, don't they?
They do. And she's just sat there in the forest and she's singing, and it's really nice. And she's got some armor on and a sword, and she's
of course.
And the metal music is really, really good, and her voice is really, really good as well. But I found myself wanting her just to really take it up a notch. And I really like the music, and I really like her voice a bit, but I just think it lacked a bit of variation, a little bit of power and in her voice.
I'm going to give you 3 names. Was it? Oh, Jesus Christ. Isiliel.
I don't know. Eric knows. Eric, be a brat.
It wasn't Eric. There's no one called Eric.
Yeah, there's no one.
Eric's
Eric's the one that's been recommending this because he saw her recently at NarCon.
I think it might be Isilio because she's got a straight fringe. There's also someone called Sari who's just basically a grey square according to Google. And then there's someone called Al Michel. That's a name. She sounds like someone important.
I'm awful with names, but like I said, I'm gonna make Eric watch this video when it gets posted so he can comment down below and let everybody in chat know who it was. But she's done like some really, really good songs recently, like as a solo artist, detached from the rest of the group. And I love the music and I like her voice, but it's like for me, she's a little bit like a glass half full. It's like, it's satisfying. You can survive off that half a glass of water, but you really want more.
I love how you've taken that metaphor and you've come to a totally different conclusion from the intended one.
It's just
reinventing metaphors.
Reinventing metaphors. And that's exactly what I feel like her. I'm like, it's good. And I really like this stuff, but I just wish there was some more to it. I want her to to do more with her voice, because it sounds like she's got it in the locker, but she just plays it very fucking safe, like extremely safe.
That probably goes back to, well, not back to, but I think that's probably has a certain degree of connection with what I was saying about those singers who sound like they're singing half a fucking sleep through their noses. Is like a lot of the time you listen to them and like you could, and you'll occasionally drop a note where you're like, there you go, you can do it. It's like, do it. So I think sometimes you get singers who don't sing with that much power just because they don't want to, and in some it's because their style doesn't permit them to. Yeah, it's not their thing to sing like full blast. I don't know her personally, but it would be a shame to hear any singer who's not making the most of their voice. So who would you say, in your opinion, is an example of someone who's really actually exceptionally using their voice and pushing their voice? Like a positive
I'm gonna twist it a little bit, and I'm gonna take that example, and I'm gonna cop out a little bit here, and I'm gonna say Sue Metal, based on the premise. Yeah, based on the premise that if you took her out and put somebody else in, I don't know whether or not it would be the same. And that's the other counter argument of this whole thing. We were talking about singers coming into bands and not liking the band because of the singer. And the same argument can be said for singers being so good they make the band. And I feel like that is what she would be. And if I say that if I took her out with some of her songs, where some of her solo songs, which are amazing, and put another singer in, I don't know whether or not it would be the same. I don't think it would be the same intensity.
I think this goes to a different argument in that I would say in regards to Sue Metal, her voice has come along in leaps and bounds. I wouldn't say she's like in a technical standpoint. I know like this is the difficult thing is because she's got a very technically good voice. But I wouldn't say she's like the best singer I've ever heard. She's just very technically good. I think she's more of a whole package in that she's got the dancing moves. She's got a kind of like lead singer look, you know, she's got the personality. I think she's kind of like a whole package person, which is what I think like a muse tend to go for. But as a raw singer, you know, like for example, in the Metari song that just came out, like a lot of people were really sort of lauding that one big held note she did. And I was like, technically that note is not especially impressive. And I was like, even if you look at the stuff she's done before, even by her standards, that's not technically that impressive. So I think a lot of the time people are very quick to amp up her ability because of the fact that I think she gets a lot of shit from naysayers who are like, oh, just dancing girls. It's like, no, she is technically very talented. But so basically my point is that I think she's very good, but I don't think that she's irreplaceable from a technical ability. I think what makes her irreplaceable is maybe that other side of a singer, which is that you become familiar with a voice and the voice becomes part of the song. This is another one of the reasons why, as I was saying the other day, we can't ever enjoy a cover band as much as the original band. A lot of the connection you have with a song is hearing the original voice.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that whole. That's a good topic for another day. Cover songs.
But are you genuinely saying you don't think any other singer could technically sing the baby metal songs?
No,
they're technically out of an
no. You've made a really good point there. No, you're right. Technically speaking, there are other singers that can do what she does. Definitely. I feel you're probably right. Actually, to be honest, it's more of the fact that, like I said, you take her out, and I don't think it makes the song. It's definitely she just fits perfectly more than probably the technical side of it.
I think again that's probably the style thing, in that you could say that in a way her style I think is probably more distinctive than anything, and as a result I suspect a lot of baby metal's music has been written certainly from the second album onwards, fully aware that that's the voice that will be singing it, so we should write to that voice. So actually there's an element of that as well. You probably couldn't replace it because the songs have been tailored to suit her singing style, which sounds like I'm giving a cop-out for her, but actually it's quite the opposite. It means that, you know, the writers are able to play with a tool that they actually like, you know. So yeah, I think that's probably, but I think there's a certain degree of like, you can't replace certain singers because they are embedded in the sound of the band. So in a way, like you were saying, can you if there's a singer in a band who you don't like and you replace them, he's like, yeah, maybe you could find something you'd like more, but then the actual songs which are written for that singer would always be kind of, it'd always be hard to see them as being something other than what they originally were written to be, whether you like that or not. So that's a
I can't think of many Asian bands which have had like replacement singers that I could say that I properly listen to, but I mean,
yes, just replace them every 5 seconds.
That's a good point, actually. That's probably why I don't have that much attachment to that band, in all fairness. I know a lot of people that like that band, but again, it's another one that I'm like, I should like them more, but for some strange reason, I just can't.
I have more attachment to Rena than I do to Aldius, which is interesting because she was the singer I got to know with the band. And then her plight was very, very sad. And then she came back with a solo career, which has been a bit hit and miss. But I just feel like I got more of a connection to her because Aldius as a band, they've been around for a long time, so it sounds really cruel if I judge them having heard probably less than 1/10 of their overall output. But to me, like, I never heard anything by them where I was like, oh, wow, musically, that's really stand out. They were just a good band. But her voice was the thing that I connected with. So when it was a good song, it was like, okay, well, many other bands could play that, but her voice is very distinct. And that's actually an interesting point, isn't it? Is that you could have, it's very rare that you have a band where a particular instrumentalist is playing something where you go, oh, that could only be that person. But a singer, it's much more common. It's like, even if they're singing something that isn't technically that outlandishly difficult, you go, well, that's always only going to be their voice that I hear in this song.
So have you ever followed a voice around? Like, I know what you just said then, but you were like more emotionally attached to the girl than the band. But have you ever just like followed a voice? Like the first thing that comes to my mind, for example, is like Fuki. Now I'm gonna try and be like as unbiased as I freaking can here because everybody knows. I know. I fucking I love Fuki. Like, you know,
she's awesome.
She's gorgeous, amazing, great singer.
And her voice is incredibly distinct.
Voice is incredible.
A lot of that is her delivery.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Like every project she's ever been in, I fucking love it. Like, and it's like I could follow her, and it sounds really, really mean. Probably going back to what you just said, but I could follow Fuki more than I can follow the bands. With probably the exception of Unlucky Morpheus, because I think I've fallen in a little bit too deep there. But like if she was to go and do something else, I'd be like, you know, and this is the thing. A lot of people are going to say, well, that's just because you like Fuki, and to a certain extent, it is. But her voice is just incredible, and it is really unique. You don't find that a lot of the time, and I would follow her to like no end.
I think, yeah, there's always going to be a certain degree of attachment, and it's hard to know how that happens because obviously when you're attached to an artist, part of it's going to be that you just kind of warm to them naturally and you kind of like you want to like them because you like what they do. But obviously there's going to be a part of it as well where you kind of know, especially with something like a voice, where it's like, you know, anyone can go to a guitar shop and buy the same guitar. It doesn't necessarily mean they can play it the same, but it means they're going to get halfway there if they have all the same equipment. With a voice, it's like you just, you know, I mean, obviously the days of like AIing it will probably come up, but for now, at least you can't just like fake someone's voice convincingly. And so there's an extra attachment in that, you know, they are the only person to be able to do that and still be themselves. And, you know, so it's a very intriguing thing. Have I followed singers around? I don't know enough singers who've really transferred from project to project.
Yeah, that's the hard thing.
It's kind of a curious one because a lot of the time a good singer, like for example, like using the SAIKI comparison or example, at least I should say. I would definitely, if she did something else, I would definitely follow it because I'm very interested in her voice. I think her voice could do many different things. I'd like to hear her use it in many different ways. But you know, that's a kind of a curiosity in itself, I guess. Ironically, for considering what I was saying earlier, I would very much like to hear Sue Metal do something completely separate and solo, just out of intrigue, because I want to hear how she would use her voice in a less tailored or in a very different circumstance. So I think I would be interested to follow that because I'd be interested to hear what these singers would do in a different context. I'd like to hear that unique tool that is their voice utilized in such a different way. And so, you know, I mean, we can always, I mean, Gacha Expander for being through their fair share of singers, and you know, would I follow if Angie left? Would I follow her? Yeah, I would, because I really like her style. I just really like everything about the way she performs.
Would you like Gacha Expander continuously though, even after a singer swap, or as much?
Well, that's the interesting thing, is because I think that her presence in the band has had a notable shift on the. Well, I can't guarantee this, but it feels from the timeline that her presence has had a shift on the writing style of the band. It's tightened them up. I think there's also a degree of them just maturing over time, and there was a long gap over the period in which Angie came in. So I mean, I'm sure she's been part of it, but I doubt she's been all of it. And one of the interesting things, actually, talking about, because I've obviously got them there, but with Asaka from Trident, who I absolutely adore her voice, and her voice, similar to Saiki's, is one that I can totally see some people going, no, that's too like sort of, yeah, it sounds forced in a way that some people would find a little bit unpleasant, I imagine. But she did that supergroup thing with Folia, a couple of other people, for like the Gibson Epiphone replays. And they were fantastic. You know, I really enjoyed that. And I must admit that I went to check those out partly because of the guitarist, Kaho from Folia. I absolutely love her. She's one of the few guitarists who I really would follow around, because her style is very chill, and I like that. But a lot of it was just because anything with Asaka's voice on, I just want to hear that. So I guess there is a degree of that. I'm going to drop one name just slightly to one side here, and this is because I think it's only fair, if we're talking about subjectivity, that we talk about singers who we probably like, who we would expect other people to hate. And one of probably my favorite singers, full stop. I can't say she's technically that brilliant, and she's got a style that people would find annoying. Some people, I'm sure, but I absolutely love the singer from Alia. Like, her voice, I think her name's like Ayame. I might be wrong on that. I haven't really done much research, but that band's pretty cool anyway. They have a bit of a thing where a lot of their songwriting, they like stick to the same chord pattern, a little bit heavy, but you know, they got enough musicians in the band, they can get away with that. But her voice, just, I love it. And I know some people would find it a little bit too like she's like throwing herself into it too much. Again, it's rather ironic, because I don't like, I guess that's the thing, is like, maybe when I hear Saiki, when I hear the lady from Alia, when I hear those kind of voices, when I hear Asaka from Trident, I kind of feel like there's a genuine power behind it. Whereas I think probably one of the things that makes me less convinced with Taka from One OK Rock is I get the feeling of a false urgency. I was talking the other day about like their video that everyone was really into, which was like the fake revolutionary song with the placards and everything. It was like, hey, this is a song about revolution, but we don't really know what we're revolting about or what. Just, yeah, hey, write whatever you want on the sign, and this will be your song. And it doesn't feel, I don't get a feeling of genuine urgency from it. It feels more like a sort of a acted urgency. Whereas I hear like Saiki, she's singing to the max because she wants to sing the max. I'm listening to Asaka from Trident. She feels like she's genuinely got some emotion behind that. Like, she genuinely is quite passionate. And it comes across in her performance. It's not all poses and stuff. It's like genuinely, you can see on her face. Like, I don't know. To me, I guess it's whatever I perceive as being genuine. And same thing for the girl from Alia, woman from Alia. Like, her performance, I look at it and it might be a little bit hammed up. I think with her, it's probably a bit hammed up, but I really get the feeling like she really, like, she loses herself in the music. But again, that's really subjective. It's just, that's the way I read it, you know? I guess it's what speaks to you.
Yeah, I think for me, probably if we were like talking about the two bands we'd recommend, or I'd expect people not to like, that I freaking love,
that's an interesting one.
Is ASAMI. But
I can't. No, I feel that's like the opposite. I can't imagine anyone. I'm really surprised by someone not liking ASAMI.
I've seen quite a few people. Honest to God, people in chat, you know who you are.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Dropping the bomb.
Angry fans of other rival bands.
I know. So, like, that's one I expect now because I've seen it so often. Another one which actually caught me by surprise, which actually happened a couple of few weeks ago, was actually Yuko. And that was not because she's not a good singer, but it's her style of singing. Yeah. And some of the notes that she hits, I've seen a couple of people go, ooh, no. And I'm like, they're like, I don't like that. And I'm like, how could you not like that? That's the
I've
whole
seen that.
point.
I've seen people not like Yuko Suzuhana's voice, and it just like it really that one really.
That's the appeal to me.
In all honesty, yeah, she probably is my favorite of the bunch. But at the same time, I think I would be more surprised by someone disliking Asami, because Asami's singing style is more contemporarily, and certainly for like our audiences who tend to be overseas people listening to Japanese music, I would consider Asami's voice to be more in the range, that sort of understandable range of most of our listeners. Whereas Yuko Suzuhana, that style, you know, even if you're really into Japanese music, it might not be something you listen to regularly, that style of singing. So I can understand people maybe struggling a bit more with that, even though I adore her voice. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, I can kind of get that. I can see why. And I have heard other people be like, I just can't get into Yuko Suzuhana. I'm just, what? But yeah, it does make sense. That's not going to be for everyone. Again, it's a subjectivity thing, isn't it? The further it is from what you would consider to be normal. But then again, I think actually the one that you probably should have said, one you at least want to say, I think Fuki's a good example. I know a lot of people who really can't stand Fuki's voice, which is baffling in a way. But then again, you listen to it, her singing style is so stylized that if someone said, I don't like Fuki, I just kind of go, I get that. You're wrong, but I get
that. yeah, you're wrong, but I get it.
So I'm not gonna stop you being wrong. You can jump off all the cliffs you like. Yeah, stick the fork in the socket, whatever works for you, man. But you know,
let us know in the comments. Have you come across singers and stuff like that? Would be interesting to know. Because like I said, this debate all started because I tried to introduce a friend to LOVEBITES and they just couldn't get into the singer. Have you had bands experiences like that with bands that you kind of want to like, but you just can't quite get over that hurdle with the singer?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that. Is there like a band like that, and also bands where like maybe you like them, but you're kind of like wary to recommend them to other people because you're thinking that I don't think other people are going to like this voice?
Yeah. I'm interested to know what people think, because we kind of all have those ones, our secret guilty pleasures. I think that we all kind of like bands we shouldn't know, we shouldn't like, but we love.
Are you talking about your S Club 7 obsession again? He's going off to play golf.
For life.
Going off to play golf.
Why golf? But yeah, I'm interested to know this debate and to see it as well, because like I said, sometimes it can leak into the rivalries of certain bands and all that going against each other. And I don't want this one to be about this. Try and make it as pleasant as we can in the comments. Try and separate the rivalries and just give us your honest opinions, because I really want to see what people say about that.
And I think the other thing as well is that this is one of those areas where I wouldn't ever use the word like good or bad, like this person's a good singer or that person's a bad singer. I don't really think that's relevant. I think it is very much a style. I don't think there's many singers I can say who are even in like the Japanese music scene who I would call objectively bad. There's just some who are favorable and some who are less so. So yeah, consider that when you're making your comments. I know most of the people in here are pretty reasonable, but just, you know, bear that in mind. Yeah, I'd always say, oh, this person's shit, you know. So just like we're interested to see what just works for you and what doesn't work for you. Anyway, shall we round this one up with
do you want to do the outro so you did the intro? Go on. You hung me out to dry in the intro, so I'm gonna leave you for this one. Go on.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember to keep your ears to the east.
What a noob!